Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today I want to talk about a comic book that I recently read, one that is about killer clowns and paralysis. I am talking about The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Ballard, a Batman comic. Brian Ballard did the artistry. He did some pretty amazing artistry here that I'm going to talk about a little later. They both worked pretty hard, among other people, I'm sure. This is one of the more infamous books in the Batman canon, with a lot of people citing it as maybe the best. I know that people tend to cite either this or The Long Halloween, or A Death in the Family, or The Dark Knight Returns as one of the best. For those that don't know, Alan Moore is a comic book writer, one of the more prolific comic book writers, writing Swamp Thing, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, a very popular Superman story, among other things, including this Batman comic. I would consider him one of the big names in the comic book industry, even before, I knew what comic books, were, which, I kind of knew his name, along with Grant Morrison, Frank Miller, those people who are the more higher echelon people in the comic book industry who write pretty great stories and have a cult following. Alan Moore has been doing this for a while, and what I read online was that Neil Gaiman cites him as an influence, which seems like pretty high praise, because Neil Gaiman is wonderful. And for him to, say, oh, well, this guy here inspired me, that has to mean something good. So I was going into The Killing Joke with not only the expectations that come from the comic book community about this, but also the expectations of Alan Moore itself. So, hard to truly come in without some expectations that this will be good. And it was good, so, very fortunate about that. Let's talk about it. Without further ado, I'll do a summary. This is a pretty old story, so I'm not really spoiling much. And then I'll do an analysis, and we will move on from there. The Killing Joke starts with Batman at Arkham Asylum. He is talking to the Joker, basically pointing out that they seem destined to kill one another, and Batman would appreciate it if that didn't happen. Batman doesn't want to have to kill the Joker, so he's hoping they can reach some sort of some agreement, or some sort of plan to reform the Joker. And it's at that point where Batman learns that this is actually an imposter. The real Joker has escaped, and he's currently in the process of buying a theme park for some unspecified reason. At the same time all this is happening, you get some insight into a potential past for the Joker, where he is a down-on-his-luck comedian who has a wife who is pregnant, and they're sort of in poverty, not doing too well at the time. In order to make ends meet, he meets up with the mob and agrees to pull off a heist at a chemical factory where he used to work. However, the robbery goes south, and Batman shows up, very early Batman shows up, and he falls into the water below, which is soaked with chemicals. And this bad day, combined with the fact that his wife recently died, and the fact that there are chemicals seeping into his brain, drives him to the point of insanity, and he becomes the Joker that we know today. Back at Commissioner Gordon's house, he's talking with Batman, or with Barbara, who is Batwoman, about stuff and things when the Joker shows up and shoots her and breaks her spine, essentially, thus paralyzing her. And then Gordon, he kidnaps Gordon and takes him to the amusement park, where he attempts to drive Gordon insane on the premise that all it takes is one bad day to drive someone insane. And in the process of doing that, he shows he shows Jem photos of Barbara naked, implying that after they carried Jem off, they stripped Barbara naked and took photos of her, which is, unusual and kind of unnecessary, I would say, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Batman shows up, very fortunately, and fights the Joker. He gains the upper hand, and so when the Joker is seemingly defeated, he appeals to Joker once again, basically saying the same thing that he told the imposter at the beginning of the story, that he would like to reform the Joker, to rehabilitate him, and he would like to not have to die, or for the Joker to die in the process, because they seem fated to do this forever and possibly kill one another. Joker responds to this by essentially laughing and saying it reminds him of a joke. I won't go into details about what this joke is. I suggest you read this story to find out. But afterwards, Batman laughs, and it sort of fades to black as it focuses on the rain. I would be amiss if I didn't point out that a lot of people have speculated that this is the ultimate Batman story. I think Alan Moore has even pointed out that, along with other people, that it's implied that Batman is choking the Joker to death. At this point, that he's been successfully driven mad, and the Joker has won, and this is the end of the Joker's tale. But death of author, I would say that's probably not what's happening. He's going to cart the Joker off back to Arkham, and the cycle will begin anew, and that's that. In terms of analysis, there is a lot to talk about here. One thing that I want to talk about is the art in this story. Brian Ballard does a wonderful job with the art. I know that in previous comic books I've read outlines where the writer sort of guides the art direction, and that might be what's happening here. I don't know for sure, but Alan might be guiding it. But Brian, does a wonderful job of creating a sort of symmetry and poetry. You see this happen once when Batman first enters Arkham, and he's walking with Jim Gordon, and there's a sort of symmetry with Two-Face going on. You also see this as the story fades in and out of the past, with characters holding poses that resemble that of the past and the present, which I think is marvelous. A lot of great art that I'm showing throughout here, and I think it's definitely one of the highlights of this story. I think it's on par with what I read in Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on a Serious Earth. So a lot of really good comic stuff going on back in the 1980s. One of the central ideas of the story is that the Joker believes, at least, is all it takes is for one bad day to drive us to the point of insanity and to turn us into a person like the Joker. Is that true for this story? And the answer would seem to be no. That's not true for Jim Gordon, because even after battering him and kidnapping him and forcing him to look at pictures of his paralyzed daughter, it doesn't drive him to insanity. Like, he's saddened by it, but he's still he's still cognizant and everything like that, and he'll probably heal, mentally speaking. So yeah, it would seem the Joker has failed in his efforts to drive Jim Gordon insane. But there's still the lingering question of Batman, because as Joker notes, Batman probably had one bad day in the past that drove him to become Batman, and he's right. Bruce Wayne seeing his parents die shifted his mind to the point where he felt the need to dress as a bat and beat up the mentally ill and other criminals of Gotham City. So it does seem to be true for Bruce Wayne. The key difference is, at least he doesn't kill the people he's beating up, but that seems like semantics, really. Like, he's still dressed as a bat, fighting people, when he probably probably doesn't need to, and there's other ways you can help Gotham. Maybe the Joker is right that it takes one bad day to do that, or maybe it just shows how they're fated to do this forever because they're the two people who had one bad day, and that led them to do a whole bunch of weird things as a result. Is there also the idea that Batman and Joker are destined to kill one another? Is that necessarily true? Does that need to happen? Does Batman need to kill the Joker in order to help Gotham? Does Joker need to kill Batman in order to prove his point? I can't say anything to the latter because I don't think that Joker is going to be necessarily satisfied after killing Batman. There's going to be other people to track down and kill, as his problem is with Gotham as a whole, not necessarily as Batman. Not necessarily with Batman. But I think that to help Gotham, maybe Batman does need to kill the Joker. That this is destined to happen. This needs to happen in order to prevent the Joker from committing further crimes. I've talked about this before in a number of places, in every single Batman story that I've talked about, how Batman needs to kill the Joker because otherwise the Joker is going to break out of jail and go and kill someone else. I should stress that this happened this very year this was published because you have The Killing Joke, which came out in May of 1988, and then you have A Death in the Family, which came out in November of 1988. And what happened in November of 1988 in A Death in the Family? Well, the Joker breaks out of prison and eventually kills Jason Todd, the second Robin. So it really seems like this question is asking, or this comic book is asking the question, does Batman need to kill the Joker? And A Death in the Family answers that by saying, yes, he does, and he's a moron for not doing it sooner because people in his life keep getting killed and or maimed in the process. So a lot to think about with that one, and I'm glad that Alan Moore explores this in more I'm glad that he explores it in more detail. Another thing that I really like about this story is how it shows Joker's memories, and as I mentioned before, in sort of a poetic, symmetrical kind of form. But you get a feeling that some of these memories might be distorted. For one, they're being told by the Joker, who is very unreliable, and he has even said that he thinks his past should be multiple choice. So you can't really trust this guy, as he's an unreliable narrator. But I think that ignores the point. Does it need to be true? Is Joker even the same person he was when he first became scarred? And there's an interesting quote that I want to read to you there. Remember? Oh, I wouldn't do that. Remembering's dangerous. I find the past such a worrying, anxious place. The past tense, I'd suppose you'd call it. Ha ha ha. Memory so treacherous. One moment you're lost in a carnival of delights with poignant childhood aromas, the flashing neon of puberty, all that sentimental candy floss. The next it leads you somewhere you don't want to go. Somewhere dark and cold, filled with damp, ambiguous shapes of things you'd hope you were forgotten. Memories can be vile, repulsive little brutes. Like children, I suppose, haha. But can we live without them? Memories are Memories are what our reason is based upon. If we can't face them, we deny reason itself. Although why not? We aren't contractually tied down to rationality. There is no sanity clause. And so that's Joker saying that how we don't need to adhere to our memories. We can forego sanity at any point that we choose. And so it brings up an important question: do the memories have to apply to Joker? And I would say no. He's no longer the same person he was at that point in time. After falling into the chemical laced water and having that really bad day, he became a completely different person, one who was entirely guided by insanity and petty grievances. And so the Joker chose this insanity, and it doesn't matter if those are his memories or not. He's not that person anymore. You can't appeal to that person anymore. His past is a non-factor in who he chooses to be now. And I don't know if Alan Moore intended for us to reach that kind of conclusion, but I think it's there, and we should definitely talk about that as we reflect on whether or not Joker has a past worth talking about. Then the last thing I want to talk about is the misogyny in this specific comic book. You're gonna find I'm gonna talk about that like with pretty much every single comic book of the time. But this comic really uses Barbara Gordon for cannon fodder. First by shooting her as a way to enrage Batman and Jim Gordon, and then showing her naked body as a way to drive Jim Gordon mad. She's really used as like as a prop in this story, even though she's supposed to be Batwoman at the time. It really seems unnecessary to have her be naked. Is it not enough for Joker to simply shoot her or injure her or something like that? You don't really need to imply that he raped her or sexually assaulted her in some way. What he did at the beginning is enough. Like Jim Gordon seeing the pictures of his paralyzed daughter, like that would be enough. It wouldn't. You don't have to show like her naked form. That seems a little bit to the extreme, and it's representative of what comics were doing at this time. Very misogynistic and using women as props rather than as actual characters. So yeah, I feel I have to call it out because people praise the story greatly, but even the great stories, they still have their minor issues that prevent comic books from being, I guess, acceptable to everyone, and that's my issue there. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Ballard. A wonderful comic book. I can see why it's so hyped and so celebrated in the comic book community. There's a lot of great art, and there's a really brilliant story there with a lot to chew on. I can also see why so many people view Joker as one of Batman's greatest villains. He often gets the best Batman stories, such as The Man Who Laughs and A Death in the Family. I can't wait to seek out more Joker-related stories in the future. Hopefully I'll find something really worth enjoying. So yeah, if you read this before, you want to comment on my review, comment below. I would love to hear from you. We can have a discussion about The Killing Joke and whether or not, Batman should kill the Joker. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about The Killing Joke if they do not already know. And in the meantime, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and bad day travels. Farewell.